Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome to yet another God of War video. Now today, courtesy of yesterday's state of play, we now have an official story trailer for God of War Ragnarok, showing us the different twists and turns coming our way, and the new adversaries we will be trading blows with. There's a lot going on here, and a lot to break down. So this video will be jam-packed full of information to give you a better look and understanding of what did we exactly see. Now, it is worth pointing out here, since this is a story trailer breakdown, there are potential spoilers ahead. So if you wish to go in completely blind, I do recommend maybe giving this video a pass. But if you're like me and simply can't help yourselves for how excited you are, seeing as we're less than 60 days away now, stick around and find out what exactly did we see in the trailer. But before we do begin guys, as always I would super appreciate it if we could first get this video to about 500 likes. It's a great way of not only supporting this video in particular, but also this channel out as a whole. It's a small thing, but it really does go a long way. Anyway, this aside, let's actually get on to the trailer. Now, the opening sequence for this trailer is really kind of the tone setter, as it very early on displays the rift between Kratos and Atreus, as Atreus is clearly keeping a secret from Kratos and not revealing to him the true intentions behind the journey. In last year's trailer, Atreus pointed out that he wanted to learn the secrets behind the name of Loki, to truly understand his heritage and what his purpose was in the grand calculus of Ragnarok. But as we hear at the very start here, it seems like Atreus is trying to protect his father, with Atreus saying the following: "Everyone keeps secrets. Sometimes it's to protect the ones we love." Now of course, this is very somewhat reflective of how Kratos treated Atreus in the 2018 game, hiding his godhood from his son. So maybe during Ragnarok, the idea of secrecy might be flipped on its head a little bit, as I will elaborate on it when we get to the somewhat Odin section of the trailer. Now, as Atreus utters these words, we see Atreus plant his hand on a tree as it resonates a white and yellow glow, somewhat reminiscent of how Freyr left her mark in the previous game. Now, it is very hard to say what the meaning behind this could be, because there's very little that this scene itself gives off. But it's very clear here that Atreus knows more about Ragnarok than what he's telling Kratos. And him planting his hand on a tree may be a way of revealing some secrets that Freyr left behind before she did die. But that is purely a theory on my end. Our next shot here is one that really grabs my attention, because it's here where we see a somewhat defeated Kratos disarming and laying his arms to rest, right alongside Freya's ashes. Now, this could mean a number of different things, but going off having seen the trailer a number of different times, it looks like Kratos may have failed in his quest, possibly implying that Atreus has either been injured or been taken away, having failed in his ability to take care of his son. It's also worth noting that the house he is in isn't the one from Midgard. This is a completely different area, and it's very hard to get a shot of what the outside looks like here. But by judging from what we can see outside the window, I believe this may possibly be Vanaheim, although the way the window is carved looks very dwarven in design. But seeing as Vanaheim is featured quite a lot in this trailer, I believe it is this realm. Shortly following this, we get the Santa Monica logo, but then are immediately reintroduced to a very defeated looking Tyr. Having been chained for eternity and finally free, the explorer of Pantheons immediately recognizes who Kratos is, saying the following: "I know you, God Killer. What is it you want from me?" Is it a god of war you came to find? Now, from these lines alone, you kind of get an idea of just how long Tyr has been locked away. His spirit is broken, as he himself no longer even brands himself as a god. So the years have not been kind to the Aesir. And we actually see a bit of that during this trailer here. As whilst Kratos is fighting a light elf, we see Tyr hunched over, nursing to an unknown figure, possibly implying he's relinquished his desire for combat, really embodying that pacifist role that we know him from in the 2018 game. Now, cutting away from this shot, we next get our first shot here of Alfheim, now clearly under the control of the Light Elves. And it looks like they've touched up the place. But even with that said, there's a lot of questions that do resonate from our brief look of this realm, like the figure in black in front of us. Now, from doing my research, I've actually been unable to really pin down who this could be. Because of all of the figureheads that Alfheim has ever had, it always comes back to one god, Freyr, as he was known to have united both sides. But with the god now gone, it raises questions of who exactly could this idol be. It may be the very being that the king of the Dark Elves did foreshadow about when we killed him in Alfheim's catacombs. I really could be looking way too deep into this, but there has to be a reason for a figure like this existing. It also goes to show how culturally different the Light and the Dark Elves are. We then next get a look at Kratos battling a Light Elf, snatching away one of his swords and performing a finisher on him. As we dive deeper into the trailer, we see Tyr dragging the dead carcass of a Light Elf across a light bridge, which also raises the question of why exactly are they here? Well, again, it is very hard to say, but I think it may actually tie into a scene from much later on. We return back to Midgard, and in the home of Kratos and Atreus. Here we get our first ever shot of the Allfather Odin shrouded in the shadows. And the shot is very reminiscent of how Baldur first confronted Kratos, simply arriving at their doorstep. But it is Odin's words that really do carry a lot of weight behind them. You don't really want war, do you, Kratos? All that blood on your hands? On your son's hands? Now, in typical Odin fashion, he is obviously trying to manipulate and sway Kratos from being a part of the Ragnarok prophecy. As whilst Kratos isn't destined to kill Odin, his very presence in Norse mythology turns Ragnarok upside down, having brought the prophecy 100 years forward. With that in mind, the Allfather is simply unprepared, but not a fool, as whilst he had underestimated Kratos, it's very clear that he knows exactly who the Ghost of Sparta is. Now, in this frame and shot itself, it implies that Odin may also be trying to take a bit more of a passive and friendly approach towards Atreus. Going back on what I said about him being a master manipulator, I believe that Odin may possibly be the one to send them on their quest, believing that by doing so, he could possibly control the outcome of the battle. It also explains why Atreus has been so incredibly vague about where they are going, much to the frustration of Kratos. So it is very possible that Atreus may have played into his hand without even knowing it. And another reason why Atreus may not be revealing any information to Kratos is because if Kratos knows his destiny, then he may die from it, as it taints the prophecy of Ragnarok. Think the 1 out of 14,065 possibilities from Avengers Infinity War. The sort of thing where if you know that this is it, then the probability of the outcome has immediately changed. So Atreus may be keeping the secret of this from his father in the hopes of not only fulfilling Ragnarok, but also saving him, as that death mural has no doubt made a mark on the two of them. As Odin utters his words, we get a shot of a giant figure here, and a group of soldiers following said figure. Now, unfortunately, we don't really know who this is, but from judging the large design and the smaller figures behind him, I believe that this actually may be a mural depicting Atreus leading armies of the dead towards that of Asgard. Again, this is more implied than it is truly clear, but by judging the colour of this, that being gold and yellow, this was a colour synonymous with Faye in the last game. So she may still be leaving messages behind for her son to find. As the camera tilts around, we do see Atreus, Kratos, Mimir, and Tyr. So this very well could be what they were looking for in the realm of Alfheim. We then shortly cut to a scene of Atreus and Kratos back to back in what I believe to be Vanaheim, as the jungle seems to be overflowing. In our next scene here, we have a verbal exchange between Kratos and Atreus, with the Spartan expressing his frustration and lack of faith in his son due to how vague Atreus is being, with Atreus saying to Kratos that he needs him to trust him. As this goes on, a number of very important shots do happen here, with Atreus grasping onto a black rune that we know will be significant to this story, as we did see it in last year's trailer. Now, from my knowledge of that trailer, we don't know what this small ball might be. It may have been the key that displayed the mural we just talked about a second ago, or it could display the coordinates to find Tyr, as we have only seen this 2 times, and this somewhat MacGuffin of sorts has only been seen in Midgard. So again, it might be a minor thing for the rest of the story. Now, our next shot here is probably the most important shot of the entire trailer, and that is a small cave-marked mural depicting the somewhat cycle of Ragnarok. And I believe that this mural itself actually might display Odin's plan in order to prevent Ragnarok from cycling. As we can see, in the bottom left, we have the world tree, representing that of the 9 realms. In the top left, we have a man standing in a doorway, and I believe this calls back to the scene of Odin arriving at Atreus' home. To the right, we have Skoll, Odin, and Hati chasing each other across the sky, and in the bottom right, I believe that to be what will happen to Asgard if they fail in their quest. In the bottom middle, I'm not entirely sure what this could be, but again, calling back from seeing this trailer a few times, I think that this might be the blossoming of Yggdrasil starting anew atop of the world tree, symbolizing rebirth of the cycle. Now, the reason why I say this is so incredibly important isn't because this explains the cycle. If we hone in on the shot of the world tree, we actually see a few realms crossed out, with the first being Jotunheim, the next being Alfheim, and the final one being Midgard. So going off what this says, Odin may be planning on destroying these 3 realms in order to not only win Ragnarok, but to prevent the cycle from turning, as the world tree would be incomplete in order for said loop to continue. Again, 100% a theory on my end, but one that does line up with just how mad the Allfather is. Onto our next shot here, we get our first look at the broken goddess Freya, and it's very clear here that time has only caused her to suffer, as she looks mournful and broken. I suppose what doesn't help is that she uses her sword, Sparrow's Bite, to pull off the mistletoe necklace around Atreus' neck. And whilst it isn't crystal clear here, it's pretty safe to assume that it is the same arrowhead that pierced Baldur's hand. Now, to some, this may be seen as a trophy, but to myself and others, this could be seen as a charm of sorts to ward off any other immortals that they could come across here. I also want to point out that it looks like Freya may have left her tortoise Charlie, as we see a fireplace behind her, and what looks to maybe be a tent, so she may have relocated in order to plan her next attack on Kratos and Atreus without them knowing where she is. Now, as this scene does play out, we do cut back to the conversation between Kratos and Atreus, with Kratos saying, "All that matters is that you are safe." But Atreus retorts, "But that's not all that matters. Who's keeping you safe?" Which once again goes back to what I said of Atreus' attempts to manipulate Ragnarok through Odin. Now, following this, we probably get my favourite shot of the entire trailer, and that is of Kratos and Atreus confronting two Valkyries, which is a downright just absolutely crazy scene, because there's a lot happening here. And the first thing I wish to point out is that Mimir has disappeared. Now, of course, we don't really know what's going on with Mimir. He may have been left in a distant realm, or could, by all means, actually be dead. We simply don't know. As these two confront these Valkyries, we get this crazy shot here of what I believe to be the void itself. Gnup, a place between realms that sits between Muspelheim and Niflheim. In fact, I believe we get a little look at this in the Jotnar Cloth Edition map, as the colours in the sky correlate with the respective colours of each realm. Now, with that said, let's quickly touch on the Valkyries here, because a big question from the last game was whether or not they would be on our side. I don't believe it is the Valkyries of old. I think these are entirely new Valkyries. As established from the previous game, there are the original 9 Valkyries and then Freya. But in actual Norse mythology, there are about 23 different unique ones. So the Valkyries we see here may not be the ones we originally met. As for who they are, is simply something I cannot pin down right now, as the only thing that really distinguishes them from each other is currently the colour of their wings, as well as their masks. With that said, we see Kratos get struck down by the two of them, and Atreus effectively getting bullied by the two, until Kratos gets up once again and begins to punch one of them in the face, with Kratos remarking that death can have him when it's earned him. Also, can we appreciate how awesome the lines are here? Pretender God? For the All-Father? So good. Anyway, back to the breakdown. We next cut away to another realm, and Kratos confronting a ginormous beast. Now, judging by the terrain, as well as the rest of this trailer, I believe we are currently in the realm of Vanaheim, as it's not quite as barren as the lands of Svartalheim, and again, it seems like the jungle of Vanaheim has really grown throughout the lands. So yes, we get a very interesting shield parry on this giant beast that is yet to be given a name. Following this, we return back to the realm of Helheim and see Kratos and Atreus battling Hellwalkers in a completely new area. So the two will be returning back here for some reason. Again, going off what we've seen of the Jotnar map, there's the possibility that they are looking to free Fenrir. But again, that's simply me connecting the dots. We then quickly cut back to that of Alfheim, and once again, see Kratos and Atreus battling the Dark Elves, with Kratos using a new running shield strike that launches the Dark Elf in front of him into the air. Again, we get some more action shots here, where the two are in Svartalheim, and their carriage has been invaded by a Grimm. So I believe what we see here is one of two things. It's a cutscene, or a new fast travel system that is exclusive to the realm of Svartalheim. Following this, we then cut back to the jungle, where Kratos is battling a completely new enemy type. A black clad in armor warrior of Valhalla, an Einherjar. Here we see that it wields a death scythe as it swings at Kratos, and has the ability to extend the scythe into an elongated blade, to which we see Kratos then apply a charged parry from the Dauntless shield, pushing the Einherjar back. We then get another shot here of Kratos using the Blades of Chaos to grapple hook his way up to a higher vantage point, giving him enough height to perform a jumping heavy strike. which is fundamentally very important for closing down the space on projectile-focused enemies. So once again, it adds verticality to what the game has to offer. We then next get a dual execution on a new enemy that was revealed to us last year, the Dreki, this time sporting a different colour scheme. We then cut away to another shot here of where Kratos is able to use the Blades of Chaos to interact with the environment and toss a giant stone at a very unfortunate pair of Einherjar, including one that we've never seen before. And judging by its design, I'm willing to go out on a limb here that this is supposed to be the heavy assault class. We next get our first shot here of Muspelheim and Kratos battling what I can only describe to be a lava elemental. In fact, in the middle of recording this video, Santa Monica has come out and confirmed that this is the Flame Phantom. So yet another completely new enemy type that's being introduced to the game. And it seems like its runic face will be the crit spot to apply damage to it, as we see it at one point cover itself in magma. And then we get a shot of Kratos here, completely covered in blood. Now, judging by his facial expression, it looks like things have gone very, very wrong. But we don't know whose blood this could be, as it could very well be Freya's, as we know she's hunting him, or even Atreus, as it may in fact line up to the second scene we saw in this trailer of Kratos laying down his arms. So again, there's a lot of these ideas that are planted out here that do look like they could loosely tie to each other. Now, as all of these action shots are going on, we have another monologue from Odin. He says the following: "What do you even know of godhood? In your lifetimes, has anyone ever worshipped you? Ever prayed to you? Can you even imagine that kind of love? No, you don't care about anything beyond yourself, beyond the monster who kills without cause." Now, originally, I thought that this conversation could be between Odin and Atreus, but for mentioning the phrase lifetimes, I believe that Odin is talking directly to Kratos, making him understand the full gravity and mantle that Odin holds over that of the 9 realms, even going so far to remark that a selfish monster like him could never learn to appreciate what this title truly means. We then next get some more action shots here, with Kratos carrying an unknown figure on his shoulders. Now, currently, it is up for debate for who this could be, because at first, I did believe this to be Angrboda, as she is a key component in Ragnarok. But from this character's design, it seems like this actually might be Freya. It's very hard to say, as we never get a clear shot of their face, but during this entire sequence here, we see this entire forest get brought down and turned into flames, as we can see from the use of Cedar magic that Freya is chasing Kratos, and with him having captured her twin brother, this may invoke a form of panic and wrath that we are yet to see from her, because in her eyes, Kratos might look like he's trying to claim another life of her family. We then cut to Kratos and Atreus back in the realm of Midgard, and I believe this is very early on in the story, a continuation of the scene from last year's trailer where Freya attacked Kratos. So Atreus just so happens to be in the middle of this blood feud between the two. In our next shots here, we see Kratos saving his son from drowning underwater. Now, it's a very, very brief frame here, and honest to God, I can't tell where this water scene actually does take place, as the background looks like it could be in Vanaheim or possibly Alfheim. And seeing as we do see a mermaid later on, this scene may also be tied to her. Now, to break up all of these action scenes here, we see Kratos and Atreus standing next to 2 giant walls as they glare at the eclipsed sun. Here, Atreus actually starts Ragnarok by firing his arrow into the sky, signaling for Skull to chase after it. So this is a very, very important scene. Our next shot here is of us back in Alfheim, and Mimir has returned to our hip. So this must be not long after they meet up with Tyr, and it seems like Kratos might be enamored by the power that the light of Alfheim may present. As let's not forget, during his very brief time in there, he was able to reconnect with Faye, even if she was just a pocket of ash. We then get our next shot here, which completely knocked me off my feet, and that is of Kratos seeing a mermaid. Cue the quick time events, ladies and gentlemen. I know some have immediately assumed that this is Ran from Norse mythology, the physical personification of the sea, but there's nothing that really implies that as of right now, and in the subtitles of said trailer, this character has simply been referred to as a mermaid. We then move to another and very important scene here, and I believe this might actually be the top of Yggdrasil. Going back to what I pointed out earlier, looks very, very different to what we have seen when we have previously traveled through the world tree, and it's also occupied by a bunch of birds. Now, if we look at the Norse texts, it's actually quite hard to pin down what these birds could be, because in many texts, these birds are roosters that signify the start of Ragnarok, or they very well could be eagles that somewhat symbolize angels, ones that exist and transcend Valhalla. Unfortunately, there is no definitive answer as of right now, so I think it is something we will all have to learn and explore in game. Our next shot here is of a giant jellyfish, one that is located in Alfheim. Again, I don't really know where this has come from, but from my knowledge and understanding of Alfheim, is that jellyfish don't really reside there. In fact, there is some mention of them to have come from Vanaheim. So once again, this goes back to when I had touched on Freya. We next get a cool predator handshake between Kratos and Tyr, showing the bond that the two will grow. And of course, a giant highlight of the trailer of Kratos and Thor duking it out outside of Tyr's temple on a frozen lake of the Nine. It's very quick and it's very brief, but it does give you a rough idea of just how large the Odinson is in comparison to that of Kratos. As all of these action shots go underway, we have a bit of a monologue here from Kratos to Atreus, saying that fate only binds you if you let it. Do what is necessary, not because it is written. We will make our own destiny. This is reminiscent of when Kratos talked to Atreus after they had killed Baldur, saying that their fate as gods does not define who they are. And if Atreus is being manipulated by Odin, these lines here could show the amount of faith that Kratos has in his son if things turn sour. So a lot of these ideas here are very much so loosely linked to each other, as there's just so much that they kind of jam-packed in this trailer. Now overall, there's a lot that goes on in this trailer. There's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of enemies, there's a lot of scenes, and there's a bunch of shit we just don't know right now. But I believe that works to our favor. I must say, I was very much so surprised as to just how much they showed off here. Ragnarok is very, very quickly shaping up to meet the expectations that the previous game has set, with new beasts, new enemies, and Odin and his kin leading the charge. I cannot wait to see what is in store for this game. But with that said, what do you think of this trailer? And most importantly, what have I actually missed out here? Because remember, I'm simply one person that is dissecting this trailer. There's so much going on here. I guarantee you I've probably missed a fair bit. And if so, once again, please do comments down below, as it really is helpful for all of us to understand just how this apocalypse is shaping up. But for now guys, that's been it for me. So as always, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting as Ragnarok comes for us all. Take care everyone, I'll see you soon.